In Latin America, many legends tied to folkloric beings and indigenous lore have managed to endure even in urban settings. Despite the growth of cities, rapid modernization, and the generational distance from rural storytelling traditions, certain tales continue to circulate in family conversations, local forums, and fringe newspaper reports. From the vast unexplored regions of Brazil to the Andean highlands and the Argentine pampas, stories of strange presences never fully vanished. In some cases, they simply changed their backdrop, moving from the wilderness into densely populated neighborhoods, train stations, or neon-lit streets. In the winter of 2020, Buenos Aires was facing one of the most difficult periods in its recent history. Amid the largest global health crisis of the modern era, movement restrictions had reshaped the city's daily rhythm, leaving streets emptier and law enforcement checkpoints more frequent. Even so, that climate did not prevent one of the largest police operations in years from taking place in one of the capital's most troubled districts, Villa 31. Originally formed as an illegal land occupation in a strategically located area of the city, the settlement had grown into a dense maze of narrow passageways, stacked housing, and improvised electrical wiring. Over time, the area became associated with drug trafficking networks, extortion schemes, and other crimes operating with relative impunity. Taking advantage of the general lockdown and the reduced movement in and out of the area, police organized a large-scale raid aimed at dismantling an extortion ring that, according to investigators, had been operating for nearly 3 years without facing any meaningful legal consequences. The operation was extensive. Dozens of officers entered simultaneously through different access points, advancing through narrow alleyways and executing search warrants on targeted homes. The tension was immediate. Shouts echoed through the corridors, doors were forced open, and the steady thud of boots against uneven ground filled the air. Several officers' body cameras recorded every step of the operation in keeping with standard protocol. From a law enforcement standpoint, the raid was deemed a success, arrests were made, and materials linked to the criminal organization were seized. Yet what drew the most attention did not appear in the official reports, but in the later review of the body cam footage in multiple video segments captured from different angles and at separate moments during the operation. A pale, whitish figure could be seen moving briefly among the officers and some of the neighborhood residents. It was not a clearly defined silhouette, nor an identifiable person. Rather, it seemed like a presence with blurred edges, passing through the frame for a few seconds at a time, without directly interacting with anyone. What stood out most was that none of the officers involved in the operation reported seeing anything out of the ordinary. When questioned after the anomalies were discovered in the footage, they all agreed they had no recollection of anyone matching those characteristics being present. The residents interviewed afterward also said they had noticed nothing unusual during the raid. In the recordings, the figure appeared to move among bodies and structures without prompting any reaction, as though it had gone completely unnoticed in real time. The internal circulation of those video clips inevitably sparked comparisons to an old legend known as the Climber. According to popular lore, this pale, whitish entity was said to have been driven out of the Amazon by sorcerers from the Paraná region in the 17th century. The story claims that after that episode, the being began drifting southward, crossing territories before intermittently settling in different parts of Argentina. In 2005, several alternative media outlets collected testimonies from individuals who claimed to have seen a similar figure in Buenos Aires, both downtown and in outlying areas of the province. In some accounts, only 1 or 2 people within a group insisted they had perceived it, while the rest noticed nothing unusual. In other instances, reports focused on environmental disturbances, flickering lights, cameras briefly malfunctioning, without anyone visually detecting a concrete presence. The parallel between those earlier accounts and the images captured in Villa 31 was quickly drawn in informal discussion spaces. Although no official statements linked the two events, the shared description of a pale figure appearing without being directly perceived reinforced the persistence of that old legend, now resurfacing in the heart of a 21st century urban landscape. However, this story is not confined to Latin America or to the oral traditions of the Southern Cone. There are accounts that trace back to other continents and eras, leading some to suggest that legends like that of the Climber may refer to entities whose presence has accompanied humanity for centuries, often going unnoticed due to perceptual limitations or the lack of technological means capable of recording anomalies. Under that interpretation, the rise of home cameras, Recording systems and portable devices has occasionally made it possible to document what once survived only in isolated testimonies. One case frequently cited in that context is that of Hiroshi Tanaka, which took place in 1987 in Setagaya, a district of Tokyo. Tanaka, an employee at a nearby factory who worked mostly night shifts, moved that year with his wife and children into an old house they had purchased at a low price. The home, built in a traditional style, had narrow hallways, sliding doors, and a small back room that was practically cut off from the rest of the house. The space was barely large enough for a futon and a built-in closet, separated by a stretch of wooden flooring that creaked easily underfoot. During the first few weeks, it was the children and the family dog who began showing signs of unease. According to Tanaka's later account, both children mentioned noises coming from above the ceiling of the back room. Soft thuds, sliding sounds, and what seemed like something dragging itself across the wood. The dog, meanwhile, avoided entering that room and refused to go out into the small backyard if it had to pass through that area. Tanaka, who slept there during the day because of his night shifts, heard similar sounds on several occasions. At first, he attributed them to rats or to the natural expansion of aging wood, common enough in older houses. Still, he found it strange that the noises never occurred in the master bedroom located at the opposite end of the house. In August of that same year, his mother-in-law traveled from Nagano to visit and stayed in the back room, unaware of the earlier concerns. The next morning, she came down to breakfast, visibly shaken. She said that during the night she had heard dragging footsteps circling the futon and breathing close by, as if someone were crouched beside her. She insisted she had not clearly seen anything specific, but the sense of a presence had been unmistakable. She flatly refused to sleep there again. The incident reminded the family that the dog never willingly crossed toward the backyard and grew restless whenever the door to that room was left open. Weeks later, a close friend agreed to spend the night in the room without being told about the previous episodes. In the middle of the night, she awoke in alarm. According to her testimony, she saw something move quickly from the interior toward the back door, traveling low to the ground and elongated before partially rising upright. In that instant, the figure briefly turned toward her. She described it as humanoid, completely white, far taller than average, with disproportionately long limbs and arms that nearly reached the floor. She could make out no defined eyes or nose, only a dark slit where a mouth should have been. The sight lasted only seconds before the figure vanished outside. That same night, alerted by the screams, Hiroshi Tanaka grabbed a camera he used to record family gatherings and managed to capture fleeting images in the rear hallway. When later reviewed frame by frame, the footage revealed a pale, elongated silhouette consistent with the visitor's description. Police were called and patrolled the area for hours, inspecting the yard, rooftops, and neighboring properties. They found no signs of forced entry or footprints to explain the presence of a real intruder. In the years that followed, no similar incident was ever reported in that house again. That being the case, these remain the only known records of this strange humanoid figure in places so far apart in the world.